Every time Caitlyn gets fouled, we can't make it seem like she was assaulted. Why like a Stephen A. Smith? It was that important to you to run the Kennedy Carter hip check, right? That was everywhere. But yet, you didn't even discuss what Alyssa Thomas did to Angel.
We find ourselves in a complex situation when certain individuals expose their racism, especially directed towards Caitlyn.
I'm gonna say this, and then I wanna be done with this whole conversation. So for people to come at me and say that I made those comments because I'm a racist, first of all, black people can't be racist.
Especially now that Sheryl Swoopes will no longer be part of the broadcast.
Sheryl Swoopes she's lighting herself on fire, Steve. They had to pull her off a game because she can't be trusted to call Caitlyn Clark games correctly or fairly. They basically pulled her off the game for racism. You're too much of a bigot to call Caitlyn Clark games. We're pulling you off the game.
Sheryl Swoopes, she's a dumb jock.
Sheryl Swoopes won't let anything, including facts, get in the way of her vitriol toward Caitlyn Clark.
Recently, Swoopes was removed from the game between the Dallas Wings and Indiana Fever.
Respectfully, Sheryl Swoopes, you have any idea how that makes you look? You have any idea how that serves to stain any kind of critique of Caitlyn Clark, because that gives fodder to those who believe she's being hated on and ostracized to some degree. Do you realize that, Sheryl Swoopes, you're insane to do?
Just last week, she had a heated exchange with Stephen A. Smith, who criticized her for not mentioning Caitlyn Clark while discussing the Fever.
What stage you're on, if you're at the highest stage, there's always going to be people that are critiquing you. There's always going to be people that are complimenting you, and I think that just speaks to how I was raised too. I've never been one to weigh the opinions of the haters too much, or I was told at the level you feel all the praise, that's going to be the same level you feel all the hate. So I feel like I just try to stay right in the middle.
It was absurd. She mentioned every player except Clark.
Now, she made news last week when she sat up there and was applauding Indiana Fever players, but then forgot to mention Caitlyn Clark. She jumped all in my ass because I sat up there and said, hey, how you going to ignore Caitlyn?
Not long ago, there was also the incident involving Diamond Deshields, which Swoopes defended.
Anytime a basketball play happens towards Caitlyn, it's because players are envious, they're targeting her, they're jealous, they're haters, they're racist. I keep going on and on. Mm-hmm. Kennedy Carter is one of the best guards in the league.
Deshields and Clark had a heated moment during the Chicago Sky game. Honestly, it's hard to say which incident was worse, Kennedy Carter's or Diamond Deshields.
Soliloquy that you dropped about the Indiana Fever. Stop it. You know that. Stop it. More. If you had talked about it more, they would have played more games. I had the power to go up to ESPN and say, directors and producers and cameramans and everybody else flocked to the WNBA at the time when it wasn't nearly as popular as it was.
But here we are. Stay strong, kid. Hate will not prevail. You have supporters, and there's nothing these hateful individuals can do about it. All love for you. Swoopes defended Deshields after the hard foul, and yes, Deshields is facing well-deserved criticism. I previously noted that 80% of the Chicago Sky's flagrant fouls target Caitlyn Clark. Swoopes has been particularly vocal about this, which has led to changes in the broadcast team.
Sheryl Swoopes, you're one of the greatest players ever in the history of basketball. See, you won a championship in college at Texas Tech. You won 3 Olympic gold medals. You won 4 WNBA championships. You know basketball. You know basketball better than me. You know basketball than any of the pundits. You know basketball better than most of the men that play basketball. There is no way in hell you just accidentally left Caitlyn Clark's name out.
WNBA icon Sheryl Swoopes has been openly critical of 22-year-old point guard Caitlyn Clark this season, stirring up controversy on social media after seemingly defending Deshields for her aggressive foul on Clark. It now seems that Swoopes' negative stance on Clark has contributed to her removal from the broadcast for the Dallas Wings versus Indiana Fever game.
Sheryl Swoopes herself. She recently spoke on her podcast, Queens of the Court, and didn't mention the rookie when speaking of Indiana's rise in the standing. Here's what Sheryl Swoopes had to say. Look at this quote here. I think the Olympic break really helped Indiana. I'm going to shout out to Lexi Hull. I'm a big Lexi Hull fan. Lexi Hull shot the leather off the ball in their game against Seattle. Kelsey Mitchell is just stroking. She's just shooting the basketball. Aaliyah Boston, almost a triple-double. If Indiana continues to play the way they're playing like this, they too are going to move up in the...
She was originally set to serve as an analyst for that game. Wow, that's really something. The official website of the Wings now lists Ron Tulin and the legendary Nancy Lieberman, a National Hall of Famer, as the play-by-play and color commentators.
You know what she brings to the table. How you just going to ignore her? That's not an accident. Sheryl Swoopes is a champion. A champion. Look at her tweet and what she put up about me. You talk about whomever and whatever you want to on your podcast, correct? So why can't I? Also, did you listen to the entire episode? Nope. I have a personal relationship with these players, and they deserve recognition as well. That ain't the point, Sheryl Swoopes. Yes, I did listen to your entire podcast. You didn't...
So much for my idea that she'd be on the sidelines. She's not. That's interesting. Swoopes even seemed to confirm this when she responded to a comment saying, "I can't wait for your announcement today. Silence or hatred is what we're betting on. Your ass is covered by ESPN, so anything can happen." She replied, "Not today, Satan." Oh boy, honestly, I would have loved to see how this played out. It would have been must-watch TV.
Personal relationship, what that got to do with your coverage? Ain't nobody said don't mention them. Ain't nobody said don't applaud them. Nobody told you to ignore them. What we're saying is if you're going to give the Indiana Fever all the credit in the world, how you going to mention the Indiana Fever without Caitlyn Clark's name even coming up?
God help me. I'm actually watching the Suns and Storm game right now. What's happening in the world? I had no idea this was just starting to spread. Many people still don't realize that Sheryl Swoopes has been removed from the broadcast.
Coach fired because she was abusive. Sheryl Swoopes, one of the OGs of the WNBA, and when you look at her or hear her talk, you understand why the WNBA never took off during Sheryl Swoopes' time because, well, if she was one of the OGs, if she was one of the stars, it was unlikable and unwatchable, and it still is. And she still.
Someone recently mentioned that the Fever faced the Wings today at 3:00 p.m. Eastern, and Swoopes was supposed to be on the mic, unless you've been living under a rock.
I do remember me saying that Caitlyn, to me, could be the best college shooter I've ever seen, right? So I don't have any hard feelings towards Caitlyn, no hard feelings towards Angel. My thing is when you put these expectations on these young women in college to go to the next level and be immediately dominant. And when that doesn't happen, then people come back and say, oh, she was a bust, she was a flop, she wasn't that good. Like, just let them do what they're doing in college, enjoy what they're doing in college, and let them become stars in the WNBA.
Given the ongoing tension between Swoopes and Caitlyn Clark, let's look at their rookie performances. What exactly are we focusing on regarding Sheryl Swoopes? Enough is enough. During a recent broadcast, Swoopes went silent for 50 seconds while her co-host discussed Caitlyn Clark being named Player of the Week. It doesn't get much pettier than that. She couldn't even muster a comment. It's absurd. Swoopes seems to be reflecting on herself before sleep. I'm not envious. It's clear that they can't stand her, and I find it amusing.
Nobody was talking about your league. Nobody cared about the WNBA until that girl, Caitlyn Clark, I don't care what color she is, she's ridiculous, she's nasty, and now people are watching, and you guys are talking shit about her? Like, what are you guys doing? They're sabotaging the whole thing. She should leave. She should have got those other contracts, Pat. Where does she have a contract to go somewhere else?
Big Three.
She should have gone to the Big Three. To hell with the WNBA. They're nothing. They're nobody. Nobody's watching.
They lost $50 million. The WNBA lost $50 million. The only reason they make it is because the NBA kind of gives money to them to help them out. It's a lost cause every year.
Swoopes is lacking in class. I can't understand the hostility she shows towards Caitlyn Clark. Her envious behavior is really tarnishing her own legacy.
I just love that she tries to stay grounded, and she says she doesn't, what did she say? She doesn't have a social, she doesn't look at her social, and I get it. I don't either. And I think it's so important to continue to do what she's doing, and no matter what other people do, then if people are negative, it's because they can't do what she...
Apparently, all the accolades that Caitlyn Clark is receiving is because she's white, and the jealous players who are attacking her are really the real victims here.
Time to grow up, Cheryl. Caitlyn Clark is being completely overwhelmed, and it's wild that they don't see how their frustration is affecting their actions. Next voice. It stems from the feeling that they should be the stars of the league. It was meant to be them, but it hasn't turned out that way. Caitlyn Clark is the one who not only changed the narrative, but completely shattered it. Everyone knows about the revenue, attendance, and ratings.
She's going to face a level of racism from black players.
Diamond DeShield received racist threats after Caitlyn Clark flagrant foul.
Be very jealous, and that I think is going to be a monster problem. I hope they get over it for the winning. Guys like to win, even if they're not the star. Well, great, we'll get a championship. Well, everybody jump on Michael Jordan's back. Everybody jump on Larry Bird's back. I don't know if that'll happen with Caitlyn.
Caitlyn Clark is breaking records and receiving all the recognition they thought should have been theirs.
Just for Caitlyn, but you asked me about Caitlyn. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that player.
No problem at all. I understand. It's a lot to take in. If you have any more thoughts or need to discuss anything further, just let me know. I'm here to help.
It'll go in the record books as Caitlyn Clark is the all-time, whatever it is. I don't even know what the number is, but that's the way it'll be. And I don't think it should.
Fever Wings TV is making some changes. Swoopes is out as an analyst, and they found a replacement.
We're sisters to this day. Like that's not a part of my DNA, you know? So it's important for me that I speak up for people that look like me. Like, it's Black History Month. So, like, our ancestors fought and died for us to have opportunities that we have today. So anytime I have an opportunity to obviously be on the podcast or anything where I feel like it's important for me to speak up and show support.
Great. Let Swoopes handle cleaning the locker room toilets. Seriously, she brought this on herself. It's honestly crazy. Has there been an athlete, male or female, facing more undeserved hate lately than Caitlyn Clark? It's shocking that Swoopes, who should understand support from her own experience, is acting this way. I saw this coming. Swoopes skipped calling Clark's game, which is unfortunate. She's really put herself in a tough spot. Does this mean she's out of a job? Probably not. From what I hear, rotations are normal, but it seems pretty convenient that they chose today to mix things up. It's clear that even the WNBA doesn't get it. Do you want viewers in excitement? Remember what TNT used to say, "We know drama." If you want drama, put Sheryl Swoopes on the broadcast. I was curious to see if she'd say something nasty or just stay silent about Clark. I understand the broadcaster's reluctance to take risks. Who knows what Swoopes might say? Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me at all. No man, this is too funny. Sorry, Cheryl, but it's time to take a back seat.
Every single person on social media that like held it down for me, that was like, oh no, we're not doing this. Like, I got mad love and respect for all of them for showing up and showing out and making sure that I was good because people were checking on me. And I'm very appreciative.
It's interesting that Elle Duncan is stepping up to defend Sheryl Swoopes, emphasizing that there's no place for racist comments or death threats in basketball. While it's crucial to stand against such hate, it's also important to address the broader issues at play. Defending someone against hate is important, but it shouldn't overshadow the need for accountability and constructive dialogue about the real issues within the sport.
See, the women of the W are hating on Caitlyn and they hate her. And we've covered that on this show plenty. What I appreciate is that with time and with the benefit of hindsight on our side, I am noticing much more calm in terms. This is her opinion. This is not the opinion of everyone in the W. I think there have been enough KW over the last few months supporting Caitlyn, showing their support. I think there's been enough of that now that people can now that's seemingly inflammatory and give it and lay it at the feet of that person, as opposed to making an entire diatribe on everyone in the W and how all of these Black women hate.
However, overlooking Swoopes' previous statements, including her incorrect claims about Caitlyn Clark's records, and calling her a bully can feel misleading and undermines her credibility. It's important to address both the support for combating hate and the issues of misinformation and accountability within the sport.
by saying that Indiana is in the playoffs right now without Caitlin Clark, by saying that like Katie Lou Samuelson's really more integral in terms of her two-way ability than Caitlin, and also saying, I don't besmirch her for this because lots of people are making arguments for whether they think that it is Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark that should be Rookie of the Year. I've said that I think it's, but that I could understand someone making an argument for the other. It's not hate to make an argument for Angel Reese. So I don't take any issue with that part. But the other part, it just feels like there is something there, and I'm not really sure what is not connecting with Cheryl.
It seems like Swoopes has some serious connections, and the analysts appear hesitant to challenge her.
That super strong, angry lesbian culture is going to destroy Caitlin Clark. Just because I want you to think about what she's trying to move the goalposts and say is that, oh yeah, great college career, she's a great shooter. But that ain't gonna work in the WNBA, and I was just looking out for her. Because when she gets to the WNBA, they're gonna call.
After all, she does have a reputation for being a bully. As a coach, Swoopes is complicating things unnecessarily. She has a history of misrepresenting Caitlin Clark and downplaying her successes.
I don't know if some of that is driven in sort of the hurt that she felt from the fan base or some of the attacks that were leveled at her after she had those comments a few months ago. But this feels really, really, really off par. This just doesn't feel right at all. And it is starting to feel a little bit like hate from Cheryl, who just in this particular space, stop. If the Fever, who won a handful of games last year, are in the playoffs this year, then you have to understand that a large part of that is Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Either one of them. I would have accepted either one of them.
Anyone paying attention can see why Swoopes might intentionally omit Caitlin Clark's name when discussing the Fever's achievements. From a media perspective, it's crucial to cover all players rather than just those with personal connections. Swoopes even conveyed this on Twitter, stating that she doesn't comment on Clark due to their lack of a personal relationship. However, many creators, even those with no ties to Clark, have refrained from criticizing her in light of Swoopes' remarks about the Fever. It increasingly seems as though Swoopes might be coming across as resentful. I understand Elle Duncan's perspective that not every critique of Caitlin Clark should be labeled as hate. I completely see her point. However, Sheryl Swoopes' comments appear to target Caitlin specifically. It's clear that she has an issue with Clark, which is hard to ignore. Let's see what Elle discussed in her podcast today.
We're sisters to this day. Like that's not a part of my DNA, So it's important for me that I speak up for people that look like me. Like, it's Black History Month. So, like, our ancestors fought and died for us to have opportunities that we have today. So anytime I have an opportunity to obviously be on the podcast or anything where I feel like it's important for me to speak up and show support.
Elle Duncan addressed those she believes are unjustly negative towards Caitlin Clark, drawing from her own experiences with similar criticism. I can relate to the complexities of the criticism that arises from both sides of this issue. To clarify any misunderstandings, let's avoid further tweets about it in women's basketball, where every play counts. A recent tweet from Vol Whiting sparked a lively debate about the ethics of tracking stats during games. Whiting, a former WNBA player and current commentator, questioned whether players are aware of their rebounds during games and suggested that Caitlin Clark's pursuit of her 10th rebound could be seen as stat padding. This comment followed a game where Clark's performance was closely scrutinized, leading to mixed reactions from fans and analysts. Whiting's tweet read, "Do players normally know how many rebounds they have during the game? Is that considered stat padding because Caitlin went after the rebound?" What seemed like a simple question quickly became a hot topic, with many fans coming to Clark's defense. One fan responded strongly, saying, "Are you trying to ruin your own legacy like Sheryl Swoopes? This negativity from you is shocking and unnecessary. You seem to enjoy targeting a 22-year-old who has done nothing to you. I no longer respect you." Another fan questioned Whiting's fairness, asking, "Did you ask this during the many double-double hunts at the end of games with Angel? If you did, great. At least you're consistent. But that rebound came right to Caitlin. Was she just supposed to let it go? This implies that players are generally aware of their stats during games, especially since they are often displayed, and going after rebounds is part of the competitive spirit of the sport. Supporting Clark further, another fan noted, all the players' stats are on the Jumbotron above. Stat padding in a win? Come on, stop it. They argued that in a winning scenario, aiming for individual stats like rebounds shouldn't be seen negatively. Adding a humorous touch, one fan joked, Fever paid the opposing player to miss, while another dismissed Whiting's comments as a troll post. These reactions reflect a mix of disbelief and humor regarding the idea that Clark's actions were anything less than competitive.